Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative take about the world around me. So my introductions. I will have, you want to reach out to me, I will have those things provided for you. And also some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker, I'm on Pandora, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Deezer, just to name a few. Okay, so this is the continuation of what I was talking about on Monday about Preacher and about Quentin Tarantino. So specifically, I'm going to get into more details about these two aspects. And with Quentin Tarantino, I am going to focus in on this time. I'm going to focus in on, because, I kind of covered it broadly on Monday, but this time I'm going to focus in on Kill Bill and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And then specifically, Kill Bill is the forerunner here to conclude with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Because, as my theme with literature, continues out, I'm going to focus on that because of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the book. All right, here we go. Okay, so here are some facts about the comic book Preacher. Alright, Preacher is an American comic book series published from 1995 to 2000 by Vertigo, an imprint of DC Comics. The series was created by writer Garth Ennis and artist Steve Dillon, with painted covers by Glenn Fabry. It won the Eisner Award for Best Continuing Series in 1999. The series consists of 75 issues in total, 66 regular monthly issues, 5 one-shot specials, and 4 issues Preacher, Saint of the Killers, and limited series. Okay, more aspects about this comic. The main character, Reverend Jesse Custer, is a tough and principled Texan preacher who has lost his faith and is possessed by a mysterious entity called Genesis, a conscienceless offspring of an angel and a demon whose power may rival that of God himself. Jesse discovers that God has left heaven and abandoned his responsibilities, and he possesses the power of the Word of God, allowing him to deliver irresistible commands to any being. He sets out a quest to find God, accompanied by his hitman ex-girlfriend, Tulip O'Hare, and an Irish vampire named Cassidy. The comic book series was adapted into a critically acclaimed television series, and I'm adding on to this. This is an AMC television series. And of course, the people, listeners out there who have seen Preacher or anything about it, the television series, you know that. But I'm just adding on. In 2016, starring Dominic Cooper as Jesse Custer, Stephen Dillon, and the comic artist is accredited as co-executive producers in 10 episodes of the series. The comic book series has been collected in various formats, including 9 original volumes of trade paperbacks, a second run of 6 trade paperbacks, and hardcovers. 3 extra oversized Absolute Preacher volumes, and 2 oversized Omnius volumes. Alright, so I'm going to get into facts about the AMC television series and then give my thoughts. Okay, so here are facts about the television series Preacher. Preacher is an American television series that aired from May 22nd, 2016 to September 29th of 2019 across 4 seasons, totaling 43 episodes. The show was developed by Sam Catlin, Evan Goldberg, and Seth Rogen for AMC, and is based on the comic book as I am talking about, in a series of the same name created by Garth Ennis and Steve Dillon. It stars Dominic Cooper as Jesse Custer, a preacher with supernatural powers, and Ruth Negga as ex-girlfriend Tulip, and Joseph Gilgun as Irish vagabond Cassidy. The series blends genres including black comedy, drama, dark fantasy, neo-western, southern gothic, and supernatural horror. It follows Jesse Custer, who, after a supernatural event at his church, teams up with Tulip and Cassidy to find God. The production took place in various locations such as Albuquerque, New Mexico, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Australia. Preacher received nominations for Saturn Awards in categories of Best Fantasy Television Series in 2017 and Best Horror Television Series in 2018 and then again in 2019. The show's viewership gradually declined over its 4 seasons, with the final season averaging about 0.53 million viewers. Dominic Cooper plays Jesse Custer. Ruth Negga plays Tulip O'Hare. And again, Joseph Gilpin is Cassidy. W.R. Brown appears as Sheriff, and Annie Deaton, the local law enforcement officer. Lucy Griffiths portrays Emily Dodson, Jesse's former girlfriend and a nurse. Ian Collette stars as Eugene Tulip, Root, Jesse, and Tulip's son. The series was praised for its dark humor and unique take on the source material, though some viewers criticized it for deviating from the comic books. Alright, here we go. I'm going to get into my opinion. Okay, so here are my thoughts about the actual comic book versus the television series. Now, I don't know, it's very tricky with that, I don't know. I say if you're going to make an adaptation, try to make it as originally as possible as you can to what the source material is. But at the same time, make it something that is adaptable for whatever media is on it's being presented on it. Either that it be television, film, or a web series or something like that here. Now, I will say about that Preacher, the comic book, is one of those comic books that it really gets it right with the aspects of regret and remorse and going through the elements, the vicious cycle of sin and repenting. So a really good example about this is the stark differences is between the character Tulip in the comic book and the character Tulip in the television series. Now, Tulip in the television series is presented as this, massive gore, pretty much psychotic person who, all intents and purposes, pretends as if she has empathy for Jesse, but really in reality, if you pull the lens out wide and look at pull the lens out close, or pull the micro lens out a little bit wider, you just see it's all an act for her to get to the means to an end to get to the next step. And so everything is open-ended, sort of. You think that she might have some sort of moral compass, but it's kind of a gray area here. And I think that now I'm going to get back to Tulip, but Cassidy, the way he's presented in the television series versus the comic book, the actor got that really well with the aspects of this this person that with the narrative well, he's kind of he's one of that no nonsense kind of person, just tell it like it is, but at the same time there's a lot of humor in the concept of everything. But the aspects of how Cassidy is interlaced in the character and the character story plot of himself, and the character story plot of how that all connects to Tulip and Jesse and everyone else in the comic book, it's very meticulous to where it's not, black and white or, really concrete as it is presented in the television series here. Let me get back to Tulip here before I go in more depth. So Tulip and the comic book here, she has regrets. She internally feels moral conflict when she is thinking and reflecting about things. Specifically, that has to do with the aspects of her association with Jesse here. And that says to how intricate it is in the plot line of the comic book of how gut-wrenching that is, and the experience of thinking that something that you're doing is that there's no harm to it, or that it's just something that is you just make the or have that mentality, the world's gonna turn to crap anyway, so I might as well take this path, and not realizing how far deep you're into it, and to where it shakes and messes up your path of where you want to go here. And so I think that as far as the television series here, now this is simply me speaking from my point of view, is that maybe they were just making the direction and taking directions the way that they did in the television series, because that is, that again, assuming that the audience isn't as clever as they could be, or as as giving them more credit as an audience, because I bet you predominantly the audience base of Preacher that watched Preacher or is introduced to Preacher, the way of being introduced to Preacher is one or two ways. They either read the comic book and they're like, oh, okay, they're turning this into a series. Let's check it out. Let's see what it's like. Or they never knew anything about the comic book, and they saw all the opening credits with that it's based off of a comic book, and they checked into it and they found the comic book and they started reading and they started saying, hey, this is a vast difference. And what the heck, this is, if they wanted to invest a lot of time and energy in watching the series and then reading the comic books, this isn't quite right. So it's one of those things that you have to keep in mind with the aspects that should be keep in mind with the aspects of adaptations. Of course, take liberties, but don't take shortcuts, if that makes any sense. All right, so with all this said, I'm going to wrap up everything and talk about Quentin Tarantino, the world of Quentin Tarantino. Here we go. Okay, so here are some facts about Kill Bill. Okay, here we go. Getting right into it. So Kill Bill, the first one 2003 and the second one 2004. It's quite interesting enough. If I'm not mistaken, the film was so long that it was originally supposed to be just one film, but they had to cut it down to where it's running, where it's a sequel, but not really a sequel. And so it makes sense to where things they seem like they're connected. They're all in just one universe, I guess you can speak. They're not trying to, continue things out to where it's part of a franchise, if that makes any sense. It seems like it seemed like what they were doing in the second one, they just cinematically and editing wise, they made it seem as if it's a pseudo sequel, but it actually isn't in reality, which is going in the lines of Quentin Tarantino himself, with the aspects of twisting story plots and making things appear to be something that they actually aren't. All right, it says here's some facts about it. It says Kill Bill is a 2-part film series directed by Quentin Tarantino, consisting of Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. Both films were inspired by exploitation films and martial arts films from the 70s. Including samurai cinema, blaxploitation films, and spaghetti westerns. So both films were critically acclaimed for their performances, direction, and screenplay. This solidified Quentin Tarantino's status as a visionary filmmaker. The series has gained a cult following and continues to be celebrated in its unique style and memorable moments. Now, there's also a fan theory that says, as a side note, that says that Uma Thurman's character was initially the actress that was in Pulp Fiction. And this is the aftermath of her life, of what happened, and it's telling that story. And that's interesting enough in itself, too. Alright, so here with Quentin Tarantino here in the aspects of pulling and adaptations and taking from things that were already established in the aspects of this entity. So, as I said, when Quentin Tarantino presents his artwork, people really take a notice to it, because the way that he makes he's making commentary within, the references that he has in his films. So, for instance, you see all of these familiar tropes that are in his film. So, the spaghetti western, how they're going on a showdown or a face-off between the characters of Uma Thurman and all the other assorted assassins, and the story plot. And that's very familiar to the aspects of spaghetti westerns, of how, you get this juxtaposition, you split screen here, and you get this contrast, and it all folds together about who is good versus who is bad. And then you get the subplot characters, and they all come together to avenge or to resolve the issue in different ways. So, samurai cinema and blaxploitation. Now, samurai cinema, has a very cultivated following within itself. And it also clues into the aspects of the culture and the aspects of the meaning, the purpose within the culture. So, to have the super heightened gore associated with samurai cinema and a movie like Kill Bill, they have that sort of association with that. That in itself is stripping down the aspects of the primal examples of what these movies are the complexities of of human nature, of what these movies are trying to speak on in samurai and Japanese culture here. Now, blaxploitation films, my goodness, is really odd, okay? It's one of those strange things where they say, oh, we want representation, we want this, we want that. But when you have the opportunity to do so, a prime example of this blaxploitation. Now, it's funny when they make humor and light of it, when you get in the aspects of movies like I'm gonna get you, sucker, and stuff like that. That's one thing. And then make it light, and then Harlem Shuffle with Robert Townsend, that was very making light of the aspects of the ignorance within racism, or the ignorance within stereotyping in Hollywood, and getting out of it. Now, that's one thing, and that's good. That's good. It has its faults within that self. It's one of those things where you say, well, you don't have to take that role if you don't want it, but it's shedding light, and it's one of those things too within itself. But I don't know. It's like, why do you want to take the cheap path of showing the black experience when you have the opportunity to really showcase the black experience to, the mainstream audience? And then the fact that Quentin Tarantino pulled from those blaxploitation imageries and put this into Kill Bill here is again shedding light with the aspects of what is the true meaning behind blaxploitation films. What is that all about, and what does that relate to with the aspects of violence and culture too? And then even with we get with other movies that he has blaxploitation with, and for instance with Pam Grier. I can't think about that movie right now, but it's one of the lesser. It's not as popular as other Quentin Tarantino films, but again with the aspects of the playing up the aspects of blaxploitation and how gritty and rough, and it seems like there's never an end out of the grind of everything. And then if there is an end out of the grind of everything, it has to be something that has to be explosively dramatic. And then why is that? And then it's quite clever that Quentin Tarantino is making commentary about all of these concepts in blaxploitation films in his films. And so, yes, in itself, that is quite unique about, deliberately saying, yes, I am pulling and I am doing this and I'm making reference, but the adaptation is this way because I'm making in itself commentary about our society at large. So I'm going to end on talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the book versus the film. Here we go. Okay, so Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the film and the movie. And wow, it really takes you on a journey about the aspects of the golden age of television and the aspects of westerns and how that translates into the new surrounding world of the 60s and, and the forecast of the 70s coming on the map here. And so the main character, when him and himself with his stuntman, they both are contrasting ideas about the aspects of old and new world in the aspects of old and new Hollywood here. So the stuntman, he has the aspects of kind of going with the flow and embracing and the mentality of the experimental aspects of what's going on in Hollywood, and it's not as prevalent in the movie, but it alludes to something that he is kind of over the aspects of how things are done from American sense of cinema. Now, Rick Dalton, I think that was his name, Rick Dalton. Now, Rick Dalton, he is all about the old-fashioned way, old Hollywood of moving and shaking and everything. And, he makes that very, very well known about everything and how he moves and how he talks to his producers. And all of that is forcing him to make a revelation of where he wants to take his career and where he wants to go in his life. A good example about this is when Al Pacino's character, it says to him he's very blunt, and when he's very, abrasive about him saying, okay, so if you continue this path of being the sort of like literally the punch man, if you continue to do this, it's gonna hurt you. But he says it in a very crass way to where it's he kind of wants to give up, and it shadows his ego, And he says, if you keep setting yourself up, nobody's going to take you serious, to put everything in a nutshell. And so, he has this internal struggle, and then he notices that his neighbors are Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate. And that changes everything for him and the map of how he's going to, sort of pick up the pieces in his own life here. And so that alludes a lot to the aspects of the concept of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Now we're surfacing on the aspects of culturally the way things are shifting from conventional ways of enjoying culture, with the aspects of Westerns. And when you get in that Western dynamic of television shows that were prevalent at the time in the golden age of cinema here, golden age of television here. The story plot is very simple. There's good, bad, and it gets neatly resolved in more ways than one. But people, the 60s were in the midst of everything, and people were having more revolutionized thoughts about culture, about their place in everything. And that was starting to change the landscape of how television, the format of television was going about. It started changing the landscape of cinema, specifically with the aspects of morality, aspects of decency, the aspects of that were starting to change. You're starting to get more pushing the envelope with things that are more, and you would get the tag NC-17 ratings and so forth. And those things were merging itself together and making it known and noticeable, in this film. And that's what I think most of the commentary was about too. And then, okay, so, all right. Also, it's unavoidable to not pay attention to the aspects of how he was in himself making commentary about this very psychological turning point that people internalize and think about. So the decisions that I make, or the path that I'm going, what can that alter? Will that alter the state of events in history, or alter my life or my situation for the good or the better? What can actually, what actually happens out of that? And so this is what I mean versus the book and these are the examples that I mean versus the book versus the television. Versus the movie. So in the movie, it's apparent that he's making the point that Rick Dalton, the character like Rick Dalton, essentially changed the course of history by his attitude or his aspects of how he, all the situations that he took and the decisions that he made, it really came to the final round. Him and the stunt guy. Just can't think about his name right now. So there are both of them are towards the end of the movie are forced to make very hard to deal with the harsh reality of the situation that they got themselves into, that they presented themselves into. Every decision the small decision that they made led up to this. Led up to, which was actual events, the Manson family coming into their home and invading their home, and they're having to make a decision on what to do. And the decision that Rick Dalton made changed the course of history to where everything was resolved the way Sharon Tate is fine. Everything is resolved the way it should be. Now, that is a stark, harsh reality into what actually happened in real life with Sharon Tate and with Charles Manson and with all the insanity that was within what happened. And in the book, it really delves deep into the aspects of the harsh reality of these people, these criminals, these psychopaths here. And that's really played out in full throttle in the book. And you start to get into understanding how depraved and how sickening it is that these things happen in the course of history, that something like this happened at all. Like what kind of it's hard to fathom what kind of world is this when there are people walking this earth like that. And then setting up everything as how he did with the mentality that you have to have in order to be subjective to wanting to do something like this to someone. And then showing how truly depraved and sick it is, and then the aspects of these young girls, what kind of mental state that they have too in order to be okay with doing something like that. And so it forces the reader and the listener, if you listen to it on Audible versus reading the book here, forces you to actually see it for what it is. And that was the problem that is the problem with a lot of these high profile criminal cases, like the Ted Bundys and everything like that. It gets sensationalized to the point to where it's hidden behind the mystique of the story, and people start to say, hey, this is quite interesting. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen next. And they completely shut themselves away from the reality of the situation, that these people are deranged murderers and you shouldn't be intrigued by that at all, which is also says a lot and makes a lot of commentary into the landscape in which we are living today, and the latter half of the 20th century of today, where crime podcasts and all this true crime stuff is really popular, and people are like and sensationalized. It's insanity. It's maddening. But Quentin Tarantino, the way he's very descriptive in the book, and that's really a stark aspect of what's so different versus the book versus I keep saying television versus the movie. And it just is a testament to his skill, because he wrote the book and then he directed the movie, so everything falls onto him with the way that what is taken out and what is what he's putting into the film versus the book. So even the characters are quite different in the book versus the film. In the book version, Rick Dalton is quite different, and even the stuntman is quite different. He's more abrasive. He's more upfront. He doesn't hide the fact that he is quite violent, and didn't even hide the fact that he offed his wife and everything like that. And So again, this really gets you into the mentality of these assorted characters into this book, and get the path of what the commentary of the nature of the beast of the book is versus the film. And that when the main source has their hands in both, that really changes the format of what can be done with the aspects of adaptations and a book versus film. And it's nice to see. All right, so with all this said, I'd like to know your thoughts about this. What your thoughts about the aspects of comic books and your aspects of his, when we get into sensitive subject matters like religion and so forth in comic books. What do y'all think about that? And then on the other hand, we get into the aspects of Quentin Tarantino and his adaptations about things, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and how that relates to the aspects of what can be done versus the written version of it versus the film version of it. I'd like to know what you all think. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harbor Light. Tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. I appreciate every one of y'all for listening. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.